The mysterious disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan without a single trace continues to raise serious questions, challenging investigators and rescue teams across Canada. The RCMP's delays have only fueled suspicions among the online community and Canadian citizens alike. Are the Canadian police hiding a dark secret about this case? Or could this be a stepping stone in uncovering a massive criminal network like never before? Stay tuned for part 2 here on True Child Cases, and don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and turn on notifications for our upcoming videos. They have continued to emphasize investigative progress, such as receiving 488 tips and conducting 54 interviews, without referencing any drug-related leads. Daniel Martel himself denied the party rumor in a CBC interview on May 30th. Yet the RCMP's silence, reinforced by a reported gag order on family members like Murray and Martel, has allowed the rumor to persist. Susie Dunn from Daza University noted that such rumors thrive due to the RCMP's limited communication, further amplified by social media algorithms. Finally, the RCMP's lack of transparency about the roles of specialized units and external agencies has reinforced perceptions of their suppression of information. While the RCMP noted the involvement of over 11 units, including the Major Crime Unit, Digital Forensic Services, and the Behavioral Science Group, they provided no specifics about the contributions of each. It remains unclear whether the Behavioral Science Group analyzed family behavior, or if Digital Forensic Services uncovered leads from Martel's data. Similarly, the involvement of the National Centre for Missing Persons and the Canadian Centre for Child Protection was mentioned without details about their roles, possibly to avoid revealing investigative directions. The RCMP's failure to disclose which of the 488 tips were dismissed or pursued, as well as their silence on the family dispute involving drugs, further suggests a deliberate effort to shield sensitive aspects of the case, potentially to protect the investigation or manage public perception. It is evident that the RCMP employed several strategies to manage public opinion during the investigation into Lilly and Jack Sullivan's disappearance, which began on May 2, 2025, in Landone Station, Nova Scotia. One notable tactic was actively engaging the community to shift focus from the investigation's slow progress to public participation. On May 30, 2025, the RCMP issued a call for dash cam or surveillance footage from Gearlock Road between April 28 and May 2, encouraging the public to contribute information. This request was reiterated on June 11, emphasizing the community's critical role in supporting the investigation. By June 19, the RCMP combined another call for footage with the announcement of a 150,000 Zen reward offered by the Nova Scotia government for information leading to a resolution. This reward not only incentivized public involvement, but also redirected attention toward hope for a breakthrough, helping to mitigate criticism over the lack of progress. To reinforce the perception of a thorough and professional investigation, the RCMP consistently highlighted the scale of their efforts. On May 7, 2025, they announced that the investigation had received over 180 tips and conducted 35 interviews, creating the impression of robust activity. This was further emphasized on June 11, when they reported 355 tips, more than 50 interviews, and the involvement of 11 RCMP units alongside national agencies like the National Centre for Missing Persons and the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. These detailed updates were strategically shared to bolster public confidence in the RCMP's commitment and competence, even in the absence of significant breakthroughs. The RCMP also shaped public opinion by carefully managing the flow of information, notably avoiding direct responses to rumors circulating on social media.
In terms of sending out,
However,
when you
despite
send
their
an envelope, you
efforts
want
to
direct
control
the public
disclosures,
to look for
individuals
specific
such as
people, to look
Darren,
for that license
Janie,
plate.
Belinda, and even Daniel Martel, the early primary suspect, publicly shared details about the investigation, including police approaches, interrogations, and the identities of those involved.
And a lot of the interviews.
While the RCMP intervened to limit disclosures about their own processes, they notably did not address statements targeting specific individuals, particularly Malia, who faced negative speculation and damaging narratives. This lack of direct intervention may have been a deliberate choice to avoid unnecessary actions that could complicate the investigation, but it also shifted public criticism away from the RCMP and onto Malia and her associates. By allowing these narratives to persist unchallenged, the RCMP indirectly reduced scrutiny of their own actions, instead focusing public attention on the family dynamics. It is clear that this case has pushed the RCMP into a crisis, and they have taken several steps to protect their image throughout the investigation. One key approach was their decision to avoid publicly addressing contradictions in family statements, such as Malia Brooks Murray's claim that the children were ill from April 30th to May 2nd, which conflicted with video evidence from May 1st showing the children in good health. By remaining silent on such discrepancies, the RCMP mitigated potential tensions and avoided fueling speculation about the family's involvement in the disappearance. In addition, the RCMP handled sensitive information about the children's potential autism with care. The stepfather of Lilly and Jack had mentioned the possibility that both children were on the autism spectrum, which could have influenced their behavior, such as a tendency not to wander far from home or difficulty communicating. This raised concerns that, if lost in the forest, the children might have difficulty finding their way back or responding to search teams due to behavioral traits associated with autism, such as fear or avoidance of strangers. To further protect its public image, the RCMP highlighted the cooperation of Daniel Martel. They allowed Martel to publicly state that he voluntarily handed over his phone, bank records, and GPS data, participated in lengthy interviews, and took a polygraph test. Although the RCMP did not confirm the results of the polygraph, allowing Martel to share his cooperation created the impression that the RCMP was thoroughly investigating every aspect of the case without bias, reinforcing their image of fairness and professionalism. Martel later claimed that his polygraph results were favorable, and the RCMP chose not to refute this, maintaining the perception that they were handling potential suspects transparently, even though details were not publicly disclosed. The RCMP also maintained public trust by providing regular updates to reassure the public that the investigation was ongoing. These updates, though lacking specific breakthroughs, such as the discovery of the blanket and boot prints, kept the community informed and conveyed that the RCMP was actively working the case. The use of careful language in statements, such as based on the details collected so far and all scenarios are being considered, allowed the RCMP to avoid premature conclusions or criticism for overlooking possibilities like abduction. By withholding the polygraph results of both Martel and Malia, the RCMP also avoided criticism over the reliability of polygraph testing, which is inadmissible in Canadian courts. When faced with increasing public pressure, the RCMP continued issuing periodic updates and appeals for cooperation. These efforts helped to calm criticism, as noted by Warden Robert Parker, and upheld the RCMP's image as a proactive and engaged force. Moreover, the RCMP used statements from Justice Minister Becky Duhon, warning that misinformation could harm the case, to steer the public toward providing credible leads rather than spreading rumors, protecting the RCMP's image as an institution committed to uncovering the truth. Regarding community involvement, the RCMP acknowledged the support of the First Nations Sepeknekadikt community, which held prayers and tied pink ribbons in honor of Lilly and Jack. Highlighting this collaboration helped the RCMP appear sensitive to cultural values, important given the historical tensions between the RCMP and Indigenous communities in Canada. Additionally, mentioning community memorials, such as teddy bears and flowers left at the RCMP detachment in Stellarton, allowed the RCMP to display empathy and solidarity with the community, countering perceptions of detachment or indifference toward the family's pain. The RCMP also employed empathetic language in statements, referring to Lilly and Jack as children of all of us, and urging the public not to let their light fade. This approach strengthened the RCMP's image as a humane organization committed to finding answers. To deflect criticism about transparency, the RCMP shifted focus to external factors, such as the challenging environmental conditions caused by Hurricane Fiona. In a May 7th statement, Staff Sergeant Curtis McKinnon explained how weather and dense undergrowth hindered the search, justifying the lack of progress without admitting investigative shortcomings. This strategic communication maintained the perception that the RCMP was operating under difficult conditions rather than being ineffective. The RCMP also emphasized collaboration with external witnesses, such as Melissa Scott, who submitted footage from her hunting cameras on May 20th. Although the contents of the footage were not disclosed, the RCMP highlighted the community's support to reinforce their image as working closely with local resources. Similarly, citing a colleague who confirmed seeing Lilly and Jack at Highland Square Mall on May 1st, as per Daniel Martell, bolstered the RCMP's image as having reliable sources of information, even while keeping their identities confidential. Finally, the RCMP avoided publicly acknowledging any failures or setbacks in the initial stages of the investigation. For example, they did not mention the oversight of Lilly's blanket, discovered by Haley on May 2nd but only announced on June 19th. By not addressing such lapses, the RCMP avoided criticism of their competence and limitations. When criticized by the behavior panel about polygraph questioning, the RCMP chose not to respond, avoiding any discussion of their investigative process. Through these actions, the RCMP effectively protected their image while navigating the complexities and pressures of the ongoing investigation. From a positive perspective, the RCMP's approach to limiting the release of information and controlling the flow of details, especially in sensitive cases, is intended to preserve the integrity of the investigation and ensure its success. One key reason for withholding sensitive information, such as evidence or witness identities, is to prevent potential suspects from learning about the investigation's progress. This is crucial for safeguarding the process. If suspects became aware of the direction of the investigation, they could alter their behavior, destroy or hide evidence, or otherwise obstruct justice. Keeping such details confidential reduces these risks and ultimately aids the investigation. Additionally, limiting the release of information helps prevent the spread of misinformation or rumors, which can quickly proliferate, particularly in the age of social media, where unverified details are widely discussed. If the RCMP were to respond directly to rumors or yield to public speculation, it could cause confusion, distract from valid leads, and create unnecessary complications. Instead, the RCMP strategically focuses on verified evidence and actionable leads, ensuring the investigation remains grounded in facts rather than conjecture. Another critical reason for withholding certain details, especially regarding families or witnesses, is to protect their privacy and safety. In sensitive cases, particularly those involving children, family members can face overwhelming pressure and scrutiny. By limiting public exposure, the RCMP reduces the risk of harassment, threats, or undue judgment, allowing families to support the investigation and manage their own emotional burdens without added stress from media and public attention. In high-profile cases, ensuring that families and witnesses are not subjected to excessive intrusion is essential for maintaining their cooperation and well-being throughout the investigation. Additionally, by managing information and releasing it in a controlled manner, the RCMP is able to maintain public trust. Transparency is important, but there is a delicate balance between keeping the public informed and safeguarding the integrity of an investigation. By providing regular updates, even without revealing all the specifics, the RCMP can reassure the public that progress is being made and that the investigation remains active. This approach not only keeps the community engaged, but also prevents the perception of stagnation or neglect that can arise when too few updates are given. Public trust is further maintained when law enforcement openly calls for cooperation, projecting an image of a police force that actively seeks help from the community rather than withdrawing from the investigation, despite its challenges. These regular updates help keep the public informed and involved, fostering a collaborative atmosphere in which citizens feel they have a role to play in solving the case. Controlling the flow of information also allows the RCMP to optimize its resources. Investigations require careful allocation of time and energy, and when the RCMP is forced to respond to every rumor or external pressure from the media and public, it can divert critical attention away from more valuable leads. By ensuring that the public remains focused on genuine sources of information, such as verified witnesses or physical evidence, the RCMP can concentrate its resources on areas most likely to yield results. For example, calls for the public to submit videos or information that could lead to new discoveries are carefully managed to gather valuable insights while minimizing irrelevant distractions. This strategic approach helps maintain the focus of the investigation, ensuring that limited resources are used as effectively as possible. In addition to operational efficiency, the RCMP must also adhere to the legal and ethical guidelines that govern law enforcement procedures. Canada has strict regulations about what can and cannot be disclosed during an investigation, particularly regarding information that could affect the fairness of legal proceedings. For instance, polygraph results are not admissible in court and could be highly controversial if released to the public. By withholding the results of polygraph tests or other sensitive data, the RCMP ensures compliance with legal standards and avoids potential challenges that could undermine the investigation. Furthermore, by not disclosing certain details, such as specific suspect behaviors or interview content, the RCMP avoids releasing prejudicial information that could distort public perception of the investigation or those involved. This careful balance of transparency, confidentiality, and legal compliance ultimately strengthens the integrity of the RCMP's investigations. By managing the narrative, shaping public expectations, and protecting all parties involved, the RCMP can pursue its work without being unduly influenced by external pressures. In cases where public trust and community cooperation are essential to resolving a case, maintaining a careful and professional approach to information management can make all the difference in achieving a resolution. Through this process, the RCMP not only protects the integrity of the investigation, but also ensures that the broader community remains supportive and engaged in the search for justice. In the end, the goal is to uncover the truth, and by managing information carefully, the RCMP increases its chances of doing so successfully. Regarding the current status of the RCMP's investigation and the suspect, there have been very few updates provided about the progress of the case. The RCMP has kept much of the information confidential, issuing only periodic announcements that offer limited insight into their ongoing efforts. Despite the lack of new revelations, it is possible to piece together an understanding of the current situation regarding the suspects and the direction the RCMP appears to be taking. Daniel Martel, the stepfather of missing children Lilly and Jack Sullivan, has been actively involved in the investigation from the beginning. From the moment the children disappeared, Daniel voluntarily cooperated with the RCMP, providing his smartphone for inspection, offering to take a polygraph test and undergo drug testing, and submitting his bank account and Google GPS data. His willingness to cooperate demonstrated his commitment to assisting the authorities in solving the case. Despite the suspicion directed at him as the stepfather of the missing children, Daniel underwent an official interview with the RCMP's Major Crime Unit on May 6, 2025, just one day before the RCMP announced it would scale down the search efforts. In the weeks following the disappearance, Daniel requested and participated in a polygraph test around 3 weeks later, in late May 2025. During the polygraph test, Daniel was connected to sensors measuring his blood pressure, heart rate, perspiration, and other physiological responses. The first question asked was, "Did you kill Lilly and Jack?" followed by additional questions exploring whether he was involved in or an accomplice to their deaths. Daniel reported that immediately after the test, he was told he had performed well and showed no signs of deception. Although the RCMP has not publicly confirmed that the polygraph took place, Daniel has maintained that it did and that the results were favorable, reassuring him that his innocence was not in question. Throughout the early stages of the investigation, Daniel remained in regular contact with the RCMP, initially communicating almost daily to provide updates and information. However, by mid-June 2025, approximately 6 weeks after the children's disappearance, the frequency of communication had decreased significantly, with Daniel reporting that contact was now only about once every 5 days. He interpreted this reduction as an indication that the RCMP no longer considered him a primary suspect. Despite the decreased communication, Daniel remained proactive, often reaching out to the RCMP by phone or text to provide details or share any new information that might help the investigation. He also provided detailed information about the day before the children disappeared, confirming that Lilly and Jack were seen on surveillance cameras near Highland Square Mall on the afternoon of May 1st, 2025, accompanied by himself, Malia Brooks Murray, and their baby, Meadow. A colleague of Daniel's corroborated this by confirming to the RCMP that they saw him with the children in the parking lot. Additionally, Daniel encouraged the RCMP to search the family home and provided items belonging to the children, such as their stuffed animals, at Malia's request. He also participated actively in the physical search efforts and consistently provided relevant information when needed. Daniel expressed gratitude for the efforts of police and volunteers and spoke to the media, sharing details such as his belief that the children had left the house through the backsliding door on the morning of May 2nd, 2025. He also worked to dispel rumors, specifically denying allegations of a drug party at the house prior to the children's disappearance. In early June 2025, Daniel participated in a candlelight vigil held in Stellarton to honor Lilly and Jack, releasing 2 paper lanterns into the sky in their memory. Despite his active participation in the investigation and public support for the children, Daniel faced restrictions from Child Protective Services, CPS, who prohibited him from seeing his 16-month-old daughter, Meadow, due to the ongoing investigation. Daniel visited the CPS office in Stellarton in an attempt to see Meadow but was denied access. Although he cooperated fully with the RCMP, Daniel felt from the beginning that he was being treated as the primary suspect, largely due to his role as the stepfather. He remarked, "Of course, the stepfather is always the prime suspect right off the bat." From the first days after the children went missing, Daniel sensed that the RCMP viewed him with suspicion. Nevertheless, he was determined to prove his innocence, offering any evidence that could demonstrate his lack of involvement. He requested the polygraph test and willingly handed over his phone, bank records, and GPS data, expressing his desire for the investigation to move forward. "I've given them everything to show them that I want this investigation to move forward." The RCMP is working tirelessly to uncover the truth. Too many questions remain unanswered. Cases of missing children always shake both the authorities and the public, exposing the cruel motives of those who commit these horrific crimes. We must stand together and strongly condemn such despicable acts. We need to bring them into the light so that the little angels out there can live happily and safely in their own homes. True Child Cases will always be here with you, keeping you updated with the latest developments in this case. Support us by hitting subscribe, giving us a like, and sharing this video, so we can continue making more videos to shed light on these dark truths.